and I've been asking really all of my guests this because I find the answers interesting and pretty unique. It's been 16 weeks since live basketball, and it's been just a bizarre time. You know, the racial unrest, the protests, coast to coast, and international pandemic, and we're in the middle of a depression, Burge. I mean, it's hard for all of us. What's the last 16 weeks been like for you?
Well, rewind the 16 weeks, and we're getting ready to talk about what seed we're going to get and do the Sunday selection show, and then boom, right, the week, was it 4 or 5 days before, it was canceled. And then, you're going from that into talking to your team about what an amazing season, and you're going through these emotional roller coaster of what's going on with losing these guys and then the season being cut short to then you're kicked off campus, right? And it's on lockdown. And then the seriousness of this pandemic is starting to make the tournament in college sports, not that big, right? In terms of the big scheme of things. And at this point, you're focused on the safety of your family and your loved ones and your friends and doing your part and to social distance and quarantine yourself. And then we go to life over Zoom, right? Because we've still got, a few scholarships to fill. And so we're recruiting over Zoom, and we're talking and meeting the staff over Zoom. And we've got a lot of players that we need to communicate with over Zoom, right? Current players. And then you're doing that. And then we slowly start to get approved on June 1st to come back to campus. The recruiting period is completely dead. We can't do anything as far as going out and seeing the tournaments or going to see recruits or bringing recruits on campus. And so you have this, we're one of the lucky schools, being in a state that was, moved to the yellow zone, yellow zone, of being able to get back on campus. And so our guys can, as of June 1st, we're able to do voluntary workouts. And voluntary workouts includes anything they want to do on the court, basketball-wise, with each other, without coaches. And then as a strength conditioning, they can actually work with the strength coach. So that's great. And it's all voluntary. And so we felt pretty lucky there. And our guys, at least we can see our guys' faces as they come through the annex practice facility. And then kind of here we are, right? Here we are as our roster's set and everyone's, on campus, student athletes in terms of men's basketball, women's basketball. And we're just still trying to stay safe. And we're trying to be positive about this thing because there's a lot of unknowns, right? Is there going to be a football season? Is there going to be a basketball season? Well, are there going to be fans? And so we feel lucky that we're out there because we know a ton of schools in the WCC conference that are still stuck at home lockdown.
So I asked Mark this question because we had him on a couple of weeks after you guys canceled. And the fun thing, Burge, about hypotheticals is you can say whatever you want and you'll be right. I think you were good. I think you guys had a really good team. And I went back to, timestamp the tweet I sent out, which indicated as much. It was something along the lines of, look, BYU's good. If they get hot, they can make a run depending on matchups. And then a week later, I have Gary Parrish on my show, and he says, BYU's a dark horse Final Four team. And I went, oh, my gosh, okay. Well, here we are. So I think you had a really special group, Burge, and as a guy that played for Coach Krzyzewski, Coach Majerus, and has seen pretty much everything when it comes to this game, my question to you is simple. The answer may not be, though. How good were you?
Yeah, well, you look at the teams that make deep runs in the tournament, and what they have is seniors and guard play. And I will put our guard play, if you take Barcelo, TJ Haas, and Jake Toulson, up with anybody in the country. I just will. I think they're that good. And then seniors. We got Yoli Child, TJ and Alex that we talked about, or excuse me, TJ and Jake Toulson we talked about, and then Dalton Nixon who's going to get healthy, and Zach Celia. So I thought our seniors, not only were they seniors, but some were returned missionary seniors that are 2 years older. And then what we had is the best three-point shooting team in the country. And like you said, it was about matchups. Because if we shot the ball well, I don't think you could beat us. I just don't. Like when we shot the ball well and we were moving, everything was going on all cylinders, and we're banging a bunch of threes, we're really difficult to match up with. And so now you had to pick your poison. Do you take away the three or do you double Yoli Childs down low? We're really dangerous. We lost, a couple nights before to St. Mary, who's another really good offensive and defensive team. And it was just one of those things where this whole year, every time we lost a game, we bounced back. We just did. At Utah, we lost in overtime. We bounced back and drilled UNLV in the Vivint Center by 33. We lost to Kansas down in Maui. the very next day we bounce back and we drill ACC Virginia Tech by 22, right? Like, and again, it's the seniors in our guard play, and then having, I think, one of the best power forwards behind Obi Toppin on our team that we can rely on for 22 and 12. Just book it, right? And so I agree with you. I think we had a chance to make a deep run. And it's unfortunate for a lot of teams that we didn't have the opportunity. But Dayton could be complaining. San Diego State was another team. Of course, Kansas and these teams. So it was a bummer. But it's something, it's part of history. There's nothing we can do.
No doubt. Catching up with Chris Burgess, assistant coach for BYU. You guys know who Burge is. Played at the U and Duke and played professionally for the better part of a decade. Chris, I saw the Brendan Quinn piece from The Athletic. I think a lot of people learned a lot of things about you, but to me, it was just reviewing things that I had already known, as you know. Yeah. And I have said for years that I am a unapologetic fan of Roger Reed and the Reed family. I went to Roger's camp. I roomed with Darren. Randy and Robbie were a little bit older than I was, so I roomed with Darren, and I really loved that family. But when he said what he said about you, I went, oh, no, and we all kind of felt that way because it was just such a misstep. So I want you to unwrap for our listeners what it has been like for you to take the path that, ironically enough, led back to sitting on the very bench that Roger Reed sat on, now albeit a seat to your left or whatever. But what has that been like for you based on everything that you had gone through before?
Yeah, great question. First of all, since I moved back to Utah 5 years ago and was at UVU with Coach Pope, 5 years ago when I started there, I've really gotten to know the Reed family. Like you mentioned, Darren, Robbie, and Randy. And there's a group of us that is older man basketball, and those three are part of it. And over the last 5 years, I've really gotten to know them. And what an amazing family that are super competitive, very smart, and are just easy to talk to. So I've really gotten to know them. So regardless of all the history, that's been a lot of closure for me, just having to be able to friend them and reconnect with Roger and feel like everything's in the past. And it's not a big deal. It's just a small little part of our, family history. That to me was a ton of closure that is hard to kind of put into the words, other than it's really good. Being on this side of the fence, though, in terms of being on that bench, it's been a lot of fun. I knew when I was working for Coach Pope, that there was an opportunity in years to come that he might be a candidate to take over BYU. I knew that, right? There's not a lot of LDS coaches out there. And when Coach Rose decides to step down, with the amazing career that he had, I knew Coach Pope would be a candidate. So when he took the job and I was interviewing with Coach, I was wrapping my head around it. And thank goodness I had Coach Pope to kind of help me out with, hey, you're going to get a lot of questions about this. It's just what it is, right? And so I was able to kind of really think a lot about being here on campus and working for BYU and recruiting for BYU, right? Because I was a kid that was a 5-star, if you want to say, that chose to go elsewhere twice. And I started, and then the more I was here, and the more here on campus, and meeting the people that work here, meeting the players that we had, being around and surrounded by the fans that ultimately care so much about this program, I've gained this love for this university that has given me this opportunity to coach these young men and represent the BYU basketball team. I grew up in a BYU family. My dad had played here as a freshman back in the early 70s. My grandpa and all my uncles had season tickets back in the Smith Fieldhouse. My sister had played here, and my 2 younger brothers had played here. Right? I grew up in a BYU family, so I've always had this appreciation for BYU basketball. Just in my life during that time, I felt like the best fit for me was Duke. And when things didn't work out what I'd hoped for Duke, and I was making a change, Coach Majerus at University of Utah, as you guys know, had it rolling, especially he had it rolling in general, but especially with players that were my position, the 5-4 spot. I had a great relationship in high school with Britton Johnson, and he was getting back from his mission. And so I actually reached out to him with a letter. There was no email, I don't think, back then. And I was like, hey, I'm looking to transfer, and what do you think, right? And so the opportunity to play with Britton and to play for Coach Majerus ultimately was the only thing I was looking at. I wasn't looking to go back to UCLA go home to UCLA or anything like that. And so I'm very appreciative of my story because it's how I coach. I coach through experience. I've had an opportunity to recruit and coach a lot of young men that are transfers that are taking a different path that are a little bit broken. I can relate to them. I've been in their shoes. I've been in their shoes where they're a 4 or 5-star that haven't exactly played or gotten to fulfill the potential of what they think, not what everyone else thinks, but what they think. And so I can speak their language, not only to the kid, the student athlete, but to the parents, because I've sat in your shoes. And I work for Coach Pope, who's also a transfer. Now, he transferred for different reasons, but I work for him. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I love being here. I'm so appreciative of the fans that have embraced not just me, but our whole staff, right, and what we're trying to do here. And the guys that look me in the eye that I get to coach and believe me, right? They believe what I'm saying. They believe what I'm teaching them. They believe that, hey, this is not easy. This is not easy, right? And so I'm very appreciative, and I'm so glad the path that I've taken and the story that I have, because it's made me who I am today as a coach and an individual.
And it's really such a unique story. That's why I think The Athletic, did a good job of kind of telling it, Burge. I mean, you have one of the more unique stories that we have here in state. And I want to hone in a little bit on what it was like to play for Mike Krzyzewski. And I'll tell you a quick story. When Jabari Parker elected to go to Duke, I had a few of my BYU friends reach out, and they said, hey, what happened? And I said, well, Duke happened. He went to go play for, he's going to play for Mike Krzyzewski. And I kind of felt the same way about you. And you had such, Shane Battier, Elton Brand. I thought Maggette was going to be like a Hall of Famer with his athleticism, not to mention William Avery. It was such a special group. So you did spend 2 years there, and you guys had some really special times. What was that experience like for you?
So much fun. Listen, I won 2 ACC regular season championships. In my 2 years there, I went 31-1, in the ACC. Of course, it's grown, but still it was the ACC, North Carolina, NC State, Florida State, Virginia. I got to play in tournament games as number 1 seed both years. I went to a national championship game and got to play in the Final Four national championship game. I got to play for arguably one of the greatest coaches and leaders of all time in Mike Krzyzewski. My assistant coaches were Quinn Snyder right here with the Jazz. He was my assistant coach for 2 years. He recruited me. The relationship I built with him, in fact, I tell people all the time, as an assistant coach, when I'm trying to kind of model myself after someone, Quinn was one of my favorite assistant coaches I got to play for. His energy and the juice that he brought to practice, it just rubbed off on you, where you wanted to bring it because he did. Right, he set the bar so high. Everyone sees that, his energy on the bench with the Jazz. But imagine him 20 years ago, right? Imagine him 20 years ago in his 30s. And so I got to play for assistant coaches like Johnny Dawkins, Quinn Snyder, Dave Henderson. I got to play with guys like Shane Battier, who is in the front office for the Heat, Elton Brand, who's GM for the Sixers, Trajan Langdon, GM for the New Orleans Pelicans, Wojciechowski, head coach of Marquette. I got to play with these guys and learn something from them, even if it was a year or 2 years, that I'll take forever. I'll take with me forever as a coach. The amount, what Duke opened up, and even though I transferred, I still feel part of that brotherhood. I'm included in a lot of things that Coach K still does, and especially during this pandemic. And Black Lives Matters. Coach K, even before he put out that video, he had gotten together with all of his former players. So I was on a Zoom call with 85 former players and coach running it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Seeing what he's talking about, and it was just so cool. Even though I left and didn't finish my career there, I'm still part of that brotherhood, right? And that's a special bond that they have. So I have so many great memories and so many good friends playing there. And I wouldn't change it. People always ask, would you do things? I wouldn't change it. I loved what I did there. And then I loved my experience at Utah as well. But I feel very fortunate. I don't want people to I was so fortunate to play for Coach Krzyzewski and wear that Duke jersey and play in Cameron Indoor Stadium. That's a special place. And if anyone has an opportunity to go to a game or see a game, they understand how special that place is.
That was a great answer. And I'm glad you framed it the way you did. By the way, catching up with Chris Burgess here on the program, assistant coach down at BYU. But I'm glad you framed it the way you did, Chris, because I'm not a believer in coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason. And so I don't do the whole I wish I would have or I should have, because you can drive yourself absolutely crazy if you do that. So I want to segue now, and you mentioned it. You transferred to the University of Utah, and you played for Rick Majerus. Now, here's the thing about Rick. Personally, I always appreciated our relationship. He was very honest with me when I went up there to walk on, and we maintained a good relationship until the day he passed. Now, when he passed, I had a couple of different podcasts to try to be fair, okay, to acknowledge the entire measure of the man for better or for worse. And you mentioned Britton. Obviously, I talked to Britt and, still talk to Britt to this day. So I just want to ask you the question, then give you the space, and you can take it in whatever direction you want. You're a big boy. Yeah. What was your experience both playing for and getting to know Rick Majerus?
Yeah, so Coach Majerus had recruited me a little bit, actually a lot out of high school, and I went to his, I'm sure you went to it too, right, the big man guard camp.
Yep.
So my first experience was maybe going into my junior year of high school, and I went to that big man guard camp. Now, fast forward 4 years, and I'm a transfer, right? I've signed my new scholarship papers. I'm transferring in, and Majerus is like, well, I'm going to have you attend the big man guard camp. And I'm thinking, I'm going to be a counselor, right? Like, because I remember Doliak as a counselor and Andre as a counselor when I'm a high school kid. And coach is like, no, you're a camper. And I think at this time I've been pretty humbled, right? And so I'm like, I'm a camper. I just, 20 days ago, I was playing the national championship game, and now I got to be a camper with these high school kids, right, at big man guard camp. But it wasn't about that, right? Like coach, what's so great about Coach Majerus is like, he was, whether a Duke transfer is coming in or whatever, he was going to win. He's won before a Duke transfer coming in. He's going to win after, right? You were not bigger than his program. So the similarities between him and Coach K were the same. No one was bigger than their program, and no one was bigger than them, right? They just weren't. And so I got there, and he made me a camper, and he got into me right away. But I was okay because I had been playing for Coach K. I'd been playing against Elton Brand and, Corey Maggette and Shane Batty every single day that at that time I felt like there was nothing that could be thrown at me that I wasn't prepared for. I was a 21-year-old incoming transfer. Now, my relationship with him was like most player relationships you had with coach. Because coming from Duke and playing for Coach K, who has militant, kind of a West Point style, I was ready for the in-your-face teaching that he went about. He was way more personal of how he went about it, but I remember one time he met, he was like, I don't know any other way to get you guys to play the way I want you to play other than coaching you like this. And it was laced with explicitives that everybody knows about. It was laced with personal attacks, which everyone knows about. But you played the right way. And I went overseas for 11 years, and there was no team, no Serbian coach, no Estonian coach that I couldn't play for or adjust to because of Coach Majerus. So I'm super appreciative of that. There are times, just like any coaches that you play for, you want to curse them out, you want to punch them, you do all these things, you have all these fantasies in your head you want to do. But I left knowing he cared about me because when I was going through the draft process and didn't get drafted, I think I was his first call he made, being like, okay, I've done research on these 4 teams that want to bring you out. Okay, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, here's where you should go. So he sets me up with the Phoenix Suns, and I have an opportunity to go play for, Coach D'Antoni and Coach Jackson with the Suns. I knew he cared about me. I knew he wanted the best out of me. Alex Jensen put it the best when I transferred there. He's like, you have to filter out the BS and understand the message. He's like, Burge, if you do that, you're going to be successful here. If you personalize the message and the things, he's like, don't come here. Don't do it. But if you can filter it out, you're being successful here. And that's exactly what I tried to do. Now, I suffered a couple injuries that kind of held me back more than anything, but that is what I tried to do every single day. And thank goodness Britton Johnson was there because he made life when you're really tough. He was the comedy hour, right, that could cheer you up.
Oh, yeah, Britt's the best, man. And, again, I'm not sure if Brady sent you a script for the interview, but I'm glad you bring up Britton because that leads me in another direction. A couple of other things before we set you loose, Burge. A couple of weeks ago, Britt hopped on the show and for about 25 minutes was as passionate as I've ever heard him, and he was standing up for you personally. And I'm going to tell you why, and then I'm going to give you the space to handle this again however you would like. You're a big boy. You know the drill.
Yeah.
There are rumors out there of impropriety and things that have happened that are below board when it came to Caleb Lohner being released from his commitment and ending up down in Provo. Now, I personally cannot corroborate any of them, so I have not reported anything, and I know the danger of gossip and rumors. So they are where they are for me. But Britton came on, and for 20, 25 minutes was like, that is my brother. That is my boy. He would never do anything below board. So I guess that's my way of giving you the space to comment on the talk, that you guys have done some things that may not be, I don't know, above board when it came to getting Caleb down to Provo.
Yeah. Well, first of all, everybody loves Britton. He's super passionate. It's why he's successful, why he was a fun teammate to have around, to play with, and it's why to this day we're brothers. Like it's just the truth. And when you play for Coach Burgess at the University of Utah, where you're in the spotlight and it's hard. And you've got a guy like Britton. I got a ton of great teammates, but if you got a guy like Britton that you're going to war with, you develop this bond that's unbreakable. You're in the trenches together. You're taking the physical and mental abuse of what it's like to be a Division I student athlete who's in the spotlight. So Britton and I go way back since high school. Britton watched me, suffer injury after injury. As well as he watched my senior year end, on ABC against Texas when I tore my plantar fascia, right, where I'm in the locker room in tears, and because my career is done in terms of college, and Britton's the one, putting his arm around me. So we've been through things that people don't understand, and they shouldn't understand. So Britton's always going to have my back. When the whole stuff like, first of all, Caleb Lohner, we're super excited about. I know I can talk about him now because he's fine. We're super excited about getting him. But Britton knows my heart, and when Britton asks me something and I give him an answer, it's a say no more. I got your back, right? And so when Britton asks me, are any of these rumors true, things like that, I go, Britt, you know me. It's not how I operate. It's not what I do. He was like, say no more. And that's all that was it. That was the extent of the conversation. I didn't have to talk about anything more. He's just, because he knows me. He knows I would never lie to him, right? And so we're Caleb, I think, was on BYU Sports Nation today, and he talked about some circumstances that of what kind of went on, and we're really excited to have him, and I just can't wait. I can't wait to coach the kid and get him on campus here come July 20th when we're able to do workouts. But to go back to Britt, he knows me, I know him, and he knows, and he has my back 100%, and he knows I would never lie to him. And I'll kind of leave it at that.
So, and I respect that, but if I may follow up, I haven't had a chance to hear what Caleb had to say. Can you shine some light on what he said today as far as what those circumstances are?
Yeah, so just the interview when they talked about his decision to ask out of his NLI was he was very appreciative of that staff up there, including Mark Hartland. He was just super appreciative of them granting his release. And in his words, I don't want to butcher, but the message was he felt like he was being pulled in different ways when he made his initial decision to go to the U, and over time he just felt like it wasn't his decision. And when he went to bed at night, he had a change of heart, and he went and asked for his release, and he was granted it. And then that's when we were able to, once he was granted his release, that's when we were able to legally reach out to him and recruit him. But his message was, I was kind of being pulled in different areas of when I first, my early signing, and didn't felt like it was his decision, fully his decision, where he feels like now this is his own decision. That was the gist and the message that he, during his interview on BYU TV with Sports Nation.
Gotcha. All right, Burge, last thing, then we'll set you loose. When it comes to college coaching and college recruiting, my experience, whether it was at 5-star basketball camp or playing AAU ball, is coaches who have the secret sauce when you see them and hear them and interact with them. Mark has it, okay? Mark has it. And after my first interview with him here on this station, after he took the job, I said to my producer and everyone else, that guy is building something, okay? And it's almost that indefinable thing. It's hard exactly to describe. You work with him every day. My question is simple, but again, the answer may not be. What is Mark Pope's special sauce?
So much. He's really successful because he cares. He outworks everybody. His mentality is getting better every day, not just as a team, but him individually. He pushes us assistants like you can't imagine in terms of getting better, growing your intellect offensively, defensively, connecting with your players. So he has this infectious personality where you want to be around. Is he really smart? Absolutely. How many coaches dropped out of medical school at Columbia where he's one of the top in his class after year 3, right? How many coaches played for Larry Bird, Rick Pitino, George Karl, Larry Brown, right? So, and he absorbed and learned so much from those guys. You look at college basketball right now, right? In the transfer portal, I think there's close to 1,000. I'm not 100% sure, but it's close to that, right? We, as players are leaving programs, it's opposite for Coach Pope, right? Players are trying to come in to play for him, right? Like the only 2 guys we had leave this year were 2 walk-ons that earned scholarships just down the road at Utah Valley. They would stay here if they couldn't, but in terms of financially, they should, we would be like, no, you need to go take these scholarships. Like you had these players at Utah Valley that we coached and recruited, like Richard Harward, Jake Toolson, Wyatt Lowell. Like they entered the portal because they're like, I want to be around Coach Pope, right? And then Brandon Avert, who's at Utah Valley, he's going to graduate, and he was like, I want to be around Coach Pope. So he has this infectious personality where you're going to be pushed. You want to be around him. He's going to get something out of you that you don't think you have. Like he just puts you into another gear, and it's the same as being an assistant for him. And so I think that's what says so much about Coach Pope is as this college basketball is trending towards the transfer portal, it's opposite for us, right? Yoli Childs came back. Jake Toolson came back. Like, think about that. Jake Toolson was basically not kicked out of BYU, but left BYU, his dream school, after his freshman year. He goes to Utah Valley and then has the pick of wherever he wants to go as a grad transfer, as the WAC player of the year. Duke's talking to Michigan's talking to Virginia's talking to him. And he comes right back to the place that, he didn't make it, right? That was his dream school, because he wanted to be around Coach Pope, right? And so you're right. You just know he has it, and he's building something, and he's relentless at it, and he loves the pressure. he loves the pressure, and he loves when people say, you can't do this. Oh, you can't recruit Matt Harms. Okay, well, watch me. Watch me recruit the best grad transfer who's not a member of the Mormon Church, right? Like that's just his mentality, and it's rubbed off to us as assistant coaches. Well, we think the same way.
Well, look, buddy, I often say this. We have such a unique basketball state. We are a basketball state. It is embedded in our DNA. There is a gym in every church, and it's better for all of us when everybody's good. And I mean Utah, That's Utah right. State, BYU, the Jazz, all of it, Utah Valley, Southern Utah. BYU basketball means something to me. There's very few venues in the western United States like the Marriott Center when it's packed. So congrats on the success so far, but I'll say the same thing to you that I said to Mark. The pressure starts now. You had a pretty special group last year, so excited to see what you guys do moving forward, Burge. Thanks for the time, man. Stay safe and be well, okay?
Thanks, man. Appreciate you guys.
There he is, Chris Burgess.